From their spinning teacups, where they ponder the difference between Tweedledum and Tweedledee, it's the Mr. Frank's Wild Ride Show. We're gonna have great Disney talk, music, mayhem, and mirth.
Gosh, oh boy. What's mirth?
So let's round up our hosts as we start up our engines for Mr. Frank's Wild Ride Show.
'Cause Mr. Frank's Wild Ride Show is the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hello everybody, this is Disney Frankness and welcome to Mr. Frank's Wild Ride. Now normally I would have my co-host. I will have to say that Disney Big Sis is no longer with the show, unfortunately. She has some personal things that she needs to take care of, and so she can't do the show, and my buddy Chris, who's WDW_Topher, is not available this evening. So I have my friends Neverland Danelle. Hi, Danelle.
Hi.
And Jason in Disney. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Frank. Thanks for having me back again.
Oh, absolutely. And our guest tonight is, well, the writer of Disney U, and that is Doug Lipp. Hi, Doug.
Hey, nice to meet you, Frank, and Denny and Jason. Thanks for being on the show as well.
Thank you.
Now I just shortened the title. I call it Disney U, but it's got a nice big title, actually. What's the title of the book?
Well, let me read it, because I can't ever remember it either. Well, here, I'll show it to you. It's called Disney U, standing for Disney University, and the subtitle is How Disney University Develops the World's Most Engaged, Loyal, and Customer-Centric Employees.
Yeah. That works. I mean, obviously Disney's well known for a good customer service. What got you started with the idea of writing a book about their business?
Well, Frank, I used to be in charge of the training team at Disney University at Disney Studios. And before that, I helped start up the Tokyo Disneyland theme park that celebrated its 30th anniversary just in April of this year, and I helped get that university going. And prior to that, I was in training at the university at Disneyland. So to answer your question, I wrote about the man who started Disney University, Van France. And he's a guy, Van was hired by Walt Disney to start the training department at Disneyland, which evolved into the Disney University, and nobody knows about Van France. And so I wanted to write about this man who was my mentor and who helped perpetuate Walt's vision.
That Jason should be right up your alley, because have you ever heard of Van France?
I actually have, and I've also heard of Doug. I remember hearing a story here or there, and I apologize, Doug, I haven't read your entire book, but I know you had some interesting stories about Tokyo Disney in there and some of the the differences in cultures, and I really enjoyed what I've gotten through so far. So a little bit. I don't have the history, but I definitely look forward to reading the rest of the book.
That's just
thank you.
That's just amazing to hear that Tokyo Disney has been there for 30 years.
Yeah, I was 9 years old when that project started, so...
Well, me too. My golly. But man, I can't. It's hard to believe. It's hard to imagine Disney in Tokyo for 30 years.
It's an amazing project. It's probably one of the best run parks worldwide. I speak Japanese fluently, so I was oftentimes in the middle between the Japanese and the Americans on the project, and it was a real interesting opportunity for Disney to kind of look at some challenges of being a real international company, and it's turned into a tremendous success story, both in Paris, Hong Kong, and of course in 2015 in Shanghai.
Now, yeah, when I create the invitations to everybody about the show, I go looking for a picture, something used for the guest, and of course I came across these pictures, one of you in Disneyland, and then one that was in Tokyo Disney, and it's just amazing how far you have reached the whole perspective of Disney. I mean, because I know 30 years, it does sound like a long time, but in the scheme of things, it's a very short period of time that Disney's been really overseas.
Exactly.
Now, how did you find the differences between when you worked at Disneyland versus going over to Tokyo Disney?
Well, there's all kinds of cultural differences, and one of the things that the Japanese wanted was for us to basically pick up Anaheim and take it to Tokyo, but there were some challenges such as the weather. It's not nearly as nice in Tokyo as it is in Orlando or in Anaheim, so we had to put a roof over Main Street because it snows, and we had to bring Pirates of the Caribbean closer to the front of the park so that even if you have to shut down the park because of snow, you're still going to be able to have a main attraction plus Main Street open at the front half of the park. So there were some physical layout challenges that we had to address.
Now, Denny, I mean, I know that you've been to Disney World. Have you been to Disneyland?
I've actually, my first time to Disneyland was when I was 4, so I don't really remember it that much. But then 2 years ago, I went for the D23 Expo that's happening this coming week. Again.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. Anyways, so I went there at night, like after the expo was closed for the nights, and I went with some friends from LA who like to, I guess, cosplay, dress up as different characters, and I love doing that too.
Right.
And Disneyland was just amazing, except I didn't know where anything was. So I get the map, and I have a like magical experience with a cast member. I was trying to find Indiana Jones. So there was this Storybook Canal, I believe it's called.
Storybook Canal, right, Jason?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I found that, and I was going to go on that, and then I got kind of cold, so I tried to get out of the line, and I was trying to find the exit, and couldn't find it, and I asked the cast member where it was, and she brings me over to it, and says, have a good night, and have a magical night, or whatever, I can't remember. And I start walking towards Peter Pan's flight, and she comes running up behind me and goes, do you like Peter Pan? And I went, I was dressed as Tinkerbell today at the expo. Of course I like Peter Pan. And she goes, okay, follow me. She takes me through the exit of Peter Pan's flight and gets me on the next boat.
Well, then that's Disney customer service, right?
Yeah.
Doug?
The question I have for Denny is, you're Canadian and you were cold in Anaheim. How does that work?
It was like 11 o'clock at night.
You figured out how to get on attractions for free. I like that.
No, that does say something for you, Doug, though, because I mean, living in Southern California my entire life and dealing with, if you look at people that make about the same amount of money as Disneyland employees, I mean, there's other jobs in that basic pay scale.
Right.
And yet these companies are not able to provide even a portion of the customer service, none of the productivity, the entire experience. It's quite frankly, it's the real test to yourself and to everyone, on the team that made that happen, to get that kind of service out of people I mean, they're not paying them, $100 an hour. They're still making, a living wage, but not a horrible wage. It just really says something about the pride that people have for Disneyland, and I'm assuming the same in Tokyo, which I'll find out next year when I'm able to go.
You're going I'm sorry, go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
No, it's a real good point, Jason. In fact, in my consulting business, I work with companies around the world that try to emulate Disney's magic, and what people often overlook is the core values that are in place. And Walt started the values, and then my mentor and the mentor of so many leaders at Disneyland, this guy Van France that I write about, made sure that those values were in place, because oftentimes people will say, gosh, if I had Mickey and Donald leading cheers at the beginning of New High Orientation, all of my employees would be friendly. And I say, no, that's just the fluff. It's the way you treat each other with respect backstage. In fact, Van France would say, how we treat our cast members backstage is how we're going to treat our guests on stage. So it's got to be respect behind the scenes as much as on stage.
It's a great point.
Now, I'm sorry we got on that track, and I've just blanked out of what I was going to ask.
Sorry, Frank.
No, it's not. No. I mean,
You were asking Jason about going to Japan next year.
Oh, yeah. A side note, I don't want to take up too much of the time, but we're planning a little trip to Tokyo, a few of us next year, to get out there and enjoy the parks. That Disney Sea is what's putting me over the top, I think.
Yeah.
I've wanted to visit Japan for a long time, And I think my boys are getting to the age now. They're 6 and 9, so I think it's time. We're planning it for next year.
That's awesome. Danny, what's up?
I have, wait, can I lean the right way here? Okay, I have a whiteboard right here, and it has 52 days. I'm going back to Disneyland in 52 days.
In Disneyland?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
We're going for,
Nice.
It's actually my birthday in 10 days, and my friend who's going with me to Disneyland texted me the other day and went, okay, so don't buy any of your tickets or passes until after your birthday. Hint, hint, cough, cough. So, and we're going to go, we're going September 25th to October 1st, and the dates for the Halloween party just got released that I know of. And the only day we can go is the first day that's on, and I think she's probably going to buy me that ticket for my birthday.
That's the kind of friends I need. I need somebody for my birthday to pay for airfare and then pay for the tickets, and that'd be great. So, Doug, what did you find? I mean, there had to be culturally between Disneyland and Tokyo Disney. There had to be obvious differences. What did you find different?
Well, sometimes the Japanese take orders literally, and sometimes at Disney, we assumed everybody thinks the same way we do. So I'll give you one example that I write about in the book Disney U. In fact, I have a whole chapter dedicated to working across cultures more effectively, whether those cultures represent different languages or it's 60-year-olds with 20-year-olds, so you've got age differences. But before we had a series of soft openings at Tokyo Disneyland. Before grand opening, you have soft openings, of course. And these are 5-6 days out from grand opening. And for one of the press events, we were going to have the press come in the next day and get to view the park. And so one of the executives was really forceful about telling the graveyard custodial crew, you got to clean the park, make it shine, because we at Disney are known for our cleanliness. And they all said, yeah, we got it. And so they went out and they cleaned the park. And lo and behold, they cleaned the Haunted Mansion overnight. And that means they repaired every broken window. They vacuumed up all the dust, all the stuff that the artists from Imagineering had so faithfully recreated. The Imagineers had, aging and graining is a big deal, right? Well, these Japanese custodians had been trained in Space Mountain. They had been trained in restrooms. They had been trained in kitchens where it's stainless steel, and if somebody says make it clean, make it shiny, they're going to scrub it until it is. And so basically overnight they got rid of a whole bunch of wonderfully placed artwork that had to be redone overnight.
So they were not used to a haunted house in Tokyo, obviously.
Nope, and our trainers hadn't trained them because the Imagineers were so busy in there doing all the aging and graining, they had never seen it until that night.
Oh my gosh, I bet there was a big commotion when they realized.
Yeah, a commotion, that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, well, I mean.
And that was the story I almost shared, and I had a feeling you were going to bring it up, Doug. That's why I didn't when I was talking a minute ago.
Well, there's another one that's not in the book, Jason, that, again, it's about regional differences. So you've got this operations executive from Southern California who is told by his Japanese crew in the middle of March, oh, we've got this massive snowstorm and we can't blow away all the snow in time. And so this guy from Southern California said, well, just hose it down. Just melt the snow and hose it down. And they saluted, went out and did their job, and within a couple hours you have an ice skating rink. So it didn't work too well, did it?
That's just, I mean, the cultural differences. I guess we like you said, we don't think of what it's going to mean to somebody else. We just assume it's going to be like us.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
I'm excited. This is because you said that they put a roof over Main Street, right?
Yeah.
Because of the snow. That's how we can get Disney Canada.
I can't even think that would be so. I mean, I would love to have the money to be able to go to Tokyo just for the differences. Like I would like to go to Euro Disney, what used to be called Euro Disney,
Right,
Disneyland Paris now. But I would like to go see the differences there. But I mean, that would be so weird to go down Main Street and there's a roof. I mean, that would just be a little bizarre for me.
Well, that presented a whole new problem when you think about the Disney concept again of good show and cleanliness. And with the roof over Main Street, then you've got the kids who will release their balloons, or they lose them, right?
Oh, no, yeah.
So now you've got this litter problem on the ceiling of Main Street, and how do you get rid of that? And you can't go in there with a rifle and shoot them down. So they wound up putting double-sided tape on another balloon with a long string, and they'd send that up and snag the balloons that were stuck on the roof, and then on the ceiling and bring those down.
Oh my gosh! Their job is just to take a balloon and snag all the other ones and bring them.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking how many people must go through there because they would have to wait until it closed to do that. And oh my gosh, that's got to be just full of balloons.
And by the way, Denny, you wanna go to Tokyo? D23 is happening in October in Japan, so you should go.
Ooh.
D23. D23 this October is in Japan.
Yeah. Well, they're having it in Anaheim, of course, this week, but the Japanese version is in October.
Ooh. I can't afford that right now.
Yeah, the airfare alone was pretty scary. I'm not gonna lie. It was somewhere between like $1,200 and $1,600 just to get over there. So it's expensive.
I wouldn't be surprised if they decided at one point, though, we've got to have it at the different locations.
Mm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if one year they say, let's put it at Disneyland Paris, to get more people out there too. Because, and Doug, have you been to all the Disney locations? I'm sure you've been to Disney World, but have you been to the one out in Paris?
No, I haven't been to Paris and I haven't been to Hong Kong. I mean, I've been to those cities, but I haven't been to those parks.
Okay.
I know that the one in Hong Kong, they really spent a lot of time, when you think about culture, making sure that things were done correctly. So in the Asian culture, the placement of things is very important. It's called feng shui. So the entrance is very important. Does it face east? Does it face west? And that kind of stuff. And some of the water attractions and some of the layout and the architecture of the buildings, they were very cautious, and they had some good cultural coaches in Hong Kong that helped them with that component.
Doug, one thing I noted, obviously Disney has this fantastic service in America, perceptually, whether it's in Anaheim or whether it's in Orlando. In Japan, in general, in Tokyo, would you say that the service was culturally that the people gave better service to start with than maybe we find in America? So that the difference between like Disney service here versus Disney service there, is there a difference there? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. But
most definitely there is. The Japanese are very careful about service, and things that are taken for granted in Japan, such as just saying hello when a customer walks in a store and saying goodbye when a customer has left. Something as basic as that is commonplace, whereas in this country, you think about it, oftentimes you walk into a store and you're eager to spend money, and everybody who works there is just chatting amongst themselves, and you're kind of like, hello, I'd like to spend some money. Do you see that I'm here? So yes, Jason, I think the Japanese are much more attuned to the concept of service, which makes it even more challenging when you're trying to create the happiest place on earth in Tokyo, because they're already used to great service.
That was my concern. Does Tokyo Disney seem like fantastic service to the Japanese?
Yes, absolutely. They knock the ball.
As compared to how amazing it seems to us.
Yeah. It's amazing, and the Japanese, for one of the things that we researched. Yeah, we researched the cleanliness factor, and a lot of times you go to the equivalent of a theme park in Japan, and it's not nearly as clean. There's trash on the ground, or you go to a festival and the trash cans are overflowing, and so that was something from the very beginning that we were concerned about, is to make sure that we had lots of trash cans, just like we have in Disneyland and Disney World. And the Japanese comment on that all the time. They love the cleanliness.
Great, glad to hear it.
That makes sense. I mean, anytime I see and I've seen folks from there when I've been at Disney World, and so yeah, it makes sense that they would be used to that type of service.
Right.
All the folks I've ever met always seem very polite.
Well, there's another example that I have to share with you, and the man who wrote the foreword to Disney U, he retired as the chairman of Disneyland International. His name is Jim Cora, an amazing guy who was actually approached by Walt Disney to help start the Disney University. So he has roots that go way back to Walt and to Van, and he's been a mentor to thousands of Disney leaders over the years. And when I chatted with Jim last summer when I was writing Disney U, we were kind of sharing and recounting stories from Japan and from Disneyland Paris. And he said, you know, one of the things that we held our culture, one of the things where we would not adjust in Japan was we did not allow alcohol in the park, much like in Disneyland. And he said that that was a huge battle with the owners of Tokyo Disneyland, Oriental Land Company, because we had a Japanese restaurant, and how can you have a Japanese restaurant without sake, Japanese wine?
Right.
And he said, we're going to stick to our guns, we're not going to allow alcohol. And after Tokyo Disneyland opened, we received hundreds and hundreds of letters from Japanese housewives thanking us for not allowing alcohol in the park, because for the first time in forever, their husbands joined them, didn't get hammered, and fall asleep halfway through the day.
Nice.
Got to give it up to the Tokyo wives. All right. Wow.
But this is the brilliance of the kinds of men and women that perpetuated Walt's value of creating that wholesome family environment, and it's not always easy.
No, it's not. I mean, it's funny you brought that up, and I seem to remember one trip to Disney World where it was raining, and I don't know if this made more people do it, but I was at Epcot at World Showcase, and you can get a lot of alcoholic beverages in World Showcase, and there seemed to be a lot of people drinking, which didn't hamper my visit, but I can understand, you know, I can understand those wives saying, you know, they don't like that. I kind of have a little, I don't know, personal thing, yes and no about it, because, you know, it is interesting. I've been to the Germany part, for example, and asked for an ale just to try a German beer, but it's, you know, I'm a diabetic. I can't you know, be drinking, and so it's a nice to have that opportunity and just to try something a little different. But then again, I can see people who would abuse it. I mean, is there a, and I've never asked this before, but Doug, you would know. I mean, is there a policy involved with the alcohol that they serve at Disney World, for example, at Epcot?
I don't know about a specific policy as far as what's allowed, what isn't. I know that the World Showcase and the pavilions, they are allowed to have local products, and including food and beverage. So I think they're just trying to stay true to whatever culture they're portraying at World Showcase.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the time, and I can't believe a half an hour has already gone by. I mean, it's almost a half an hour. So the picture I saw, you worked at Disneyland. You went over and worked at Tokyo Disney.
Right.
Helped do training over there. So did you not do any training at Disney World itself?
Not in Disney World. I would take business trips there, but I never did training there. So it was Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland, and then the studios in Burbank.
Now, this kind of brings up just for me a personal question. I have lots of friends who, like, you know, they work and at Disneyland, and I have friends that work at Disney World. Sometimes it almost seems like instead of one corporation, it's two different, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, just two different companies. And when you know, as a person who has worked for Disney and worked with that, have you seen where they've tried to influence it as one large corporation, or did you see some differences in the locations?
I think it's both, because yes, you see leadership that's in charge of California and Orlando, when you think about whoever is in charge of recreation and outdoor entertainment. That said, you're still going to have regional differences. I mean, you're always going to have the pride factor at Disneyland, knowing that this is the street that Walt Disney walked down. touch this property. Walt Disney World is always going to say, look at what we were able to do after the fact and create a true world that touches so many more people. And so you've got the Southeast, you've got the Southwest, you've got regional differences that are always going to be part of that. But I think as a total organization, I think that Disney, relative to the size and to other companies that I work with, does an amazing job of maintaining a standard of quality. For example, I was recently in Hawaii just last week, and I visited the Aulani Resort, and that's the first time that the Disney company has built a resort absent a theme park, and they've done a tremendous job. Now that's thousands of miles away across in a totally different culture. And as an example, at that Disney University, or the training department there, Frank, incorporates Hawaiian culture and respect of Hawaiian culture into part of cast member training. So they're actually recognizing the differences even more.
That makes sense. Now that you brought that up too, and of course I've never been to a new location in Hawaii, but being that Disney is such family oriented, maybe you can tell me what do they have at Hawaii? If I say I went and I took my daughter, that they have a family, atmosphere. I mean, what events or what things can you do with your children there?
Well, they have, on the property alone, they have programs for the children. So for, I forget the age group, but it's like 3 to 6, and then you have like the 7 to 10, and then the preteens and the teenagers. So it'd be like on a cruise ship. Very similar kinds of activities where parents can be involved, or parents can put a child into an event and then have some alone time on the beach. It's
Right.
a very nicely designed environment, much like a cruise ship, in that you've got these different areas for adults and for kids. It just happens to be on land.
We've got to have you back on.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I love hearing all this stuff, and you have so much Disney history involved in what you do in the book, and I don't know that many people that I've been able to talk to who actually knew someone who worked with Walt.
Well, I want to share with you, it was a true honor, and there are many, many other people who worked directly with Walt who had much longer careers than I that deserve to be placed on a pedestal, and that's another reason why I wrote Disney U, is because so many of them have been misquoted or they haven't been recognized. And in part of my research for doing this book, since I live in Sacramento, I'm an hour and a half from San Francisco, and there's a world-class museum that I encourage all of your listeners to go to. It's called the Walt Disney Family Museum. And Walt Disney's daughter, Diane, and her husband, Ron was the CEO when I was there just before Michael Eisner came on board. Ron and Diane opened this museum a couple of years ago, and it truly is world-class. And when I visited the museum as their guest, in chatting with Diane Disney, who is 80 years of age, I never got to meet Walt, but in talking to his daughter, Diane, and seeing the energy that she exudes when talking about her family museum, I feel like it must have been when you would talk to Walt and have that kind of energy right in front of you.
Yeah, you guys, you don't know, but Doug and I got to practice a little bit. We created our own hangout the other day, and we got to talk a little bit, and Diane Disney was in Kansas City, and I unfortunately didn't get to meet her. I have friends that I work with on Laugh-O-Gram trying to say Walt's first studio who were there, and yeah, I understand what you mean. The energy they told me about too, you can feel how enthused she is and how proud she is of her father, and God bless her for that, because he went through a lot of difficulty. He went through quite a few bankruptcies before he became who we know him as, and so yeah, that's just to have the experience of being able to talk with her has got to be just amazing.
And I think Doug, you said it right when you said that there were other stories written, but maybe that some of the players were misquoted. And I'd like to thank you for writing your book also, and there's other books also. But thank you for getting it right. Like you said, Diane is 80 years old, and I hear nothing but great things about the museum. it's just nice to have the information. You know, if Walt made a quote, I see Instagram all the time where people put up little quotes and a picture of somebody. It's not something Walt said, but, you know, it's been attributed to him by some fallacy, you know, throughout time. So it's really nice to hear that, you know, the true quotes from the actual people. So
well, I
you.
interviewed a number of them directly, and then I bent Dave Smith's ear constantly, and he's the man who started the Disney Archives, and I would call him and say, hey, this is something I just heard from somebody. Can you verify this? And he was a godsend, because he would make sure that it was accurate. And I remember each interview that I had with these people, I had maybe an hour interview, or I'd have 8 hours face to face. And to the person, sometime during the interview, they'd reach out and tap my shoulder, or they would connect with me at eye contact and say, Doug, thanks for writing about Van. Thanks for writing about the Disney University. Oh, by the way, make sure you do a good job. It was amazing.
A lot of pressure, huh? No pressure. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, I was honored that these men and women trusted me enough to open up their doors to me, their hearts and their minds, and share with me stories. Some of them I'd heard, and others were brand new, and they were all amazing.
Well, seriously, I've got to have you come back on, and we'll talk some more about the book. Again, the book. What's the full title of the book, Doug?
I'll show it to you. It's right here. Can you read that? Disney U: How Disney University Develops the World's Most Engaged, Loyal, and Customer-Centric Employees. Buy the book.
Make it go.
Amazon.com, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. Yeah.
Frank, I think there's a lot more stories that we got to get next time, because I think he's going to tell a few more cast member exclusive stories. So I definitely hope he can come back again, and I hope I'm part of that show also.
You mean what happens backstage on grad nights?
Something like that was about. Yeah, that might be an hour segment, Frank. We might have to extend it that day.
I was going to say that would take probably a good half an hour right there, just talk about what happens backstage. Oh, Doug. But yeah, you and I have become friends on Twitter, so I'll be in touch, because I really want you to come on again, and we can hopefully share some more stories of what happens at Disney. But thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, and everybody, stick with us. We'll be right back, and we'll update you with some Disney news.